Nearly 15 years ago, Lexus gave us the first ever F-branded high-performance sports sedan dubbed the ISF. Now at the time, it was Lexus's answer to the BMW M3 and Mercedes-AMG C63, and while it wasn't as fast as its German rivals, it still grew a loyal following because of that high-revving, naturally aspirated V8. Now we haven't seen an ISF-badged vehicle in America since 2013, and for 2022, that vehicle sort of makes a return in the form of this. Right behind me is the 2022 Lexus IS 500 F Sport Performance. Now, while it isn't a full-on ISF model on the back, under the hood it has an updated engine from the ISF, the 5-liter V8, now making 472 horsepower, which Lexus claims this is the most powerful production IS that the company has ever built. So now that I've got this new IS 500 behind me to test, the big question I want answered: is this new IS 500 a spiritual successor to the ISF? Stay tuned to find out. So of course, the big news with this IS 500 F Sport has to do with underneath the hood. This hood, by the way, is raised up to make clearance for that engine. We haven't seen a V8 under the hood of this model for almost a decade, and thankfully this engine is very much a nod to enthusiasts. Now look at this beautiful looking engine. Those intake runners are not blue painted like what you'll find on the RCF, but this is the same 5-liter naturally aspirated V8, part of the 2UR GSE engine family. This engine is going to be bulletproof reliable. It does have direct injection and variable valve timing. It makes 472 horsepower and 395 pound-feet of torque. Now, of course, this is not as powerful as something like a BMW M3 competition or a Mercedes-AMG C63, but Lexus is going to position this car to be in the same league as an M340i, an Acura TLX Type S, a Mercedes-AMG C43, and an Audi S4. So essentially those models have turbocharged V6 engine or 6-cylinder engines, while this has a V8. It all goes out through an 8-speed automatic transmission. This is a Lexus design transmission. And unlike its rivals, which are available or standard with all-wheel drive, this only comes with rear-wheel drive, and it includes a Torsen limited slip differential. So again, this is going to be this kind of a car for those tail-out rear-wheel drive drift shenanigans, which is going to make this a really, really fun car. Lexus says with this much power, it should do 0 to 60 in around 4.5 seconds, which would make it slightly quicker than some of its rivals. And fuel economy is rated to get 16 in the city and 24 on the highway. So it is a little bit of a gas guzzler, but you can give that, of course, to the V8 of this car. Now, I don't have final curb weight figures just yet, but I would estimate this car is just under 4,000 pounds, maybe around 3,800 pounds. It should be a lot lighter versus something like a TLX Type S, which I just tested to be one of the main competitors of this car. Now, closing the hood, let's take a look at the styling of the IS 500. Now, first of all, you're really going to notice that raised hood. It's got to be there to make clearance for that V8. And this particular one that I'm showing you is painted in this gorgeous shade of infrared. It's a upcharged paint color for around $500. You can see this is all going to have the styling from an IS 350 F Sport model. It's got the same front fascia with this big Lexus spindle grille. Lexus gave this car a pretty extensive refresh last year, where it's supposedly a redesign, but the chassis is still much the same. You have these kind of intricate L's with the black mesh finish in the grille. You have more black mesh finish areas in the lower splitter or the intake housing over there, which this over here actually has functional vents to create an air curtain. You have these triple beam full LED headlights with LED daytime running lights and LED turn signals, but no fog lights on this generation anymore. But overall, when you look at this car, it's a really good looking car. It's one of the better looking options out there, right up there with the new TLX Type S. And I also like the size of this vehicle. It's just right. It's not too big like some of its competitors. Now at 187 inches long, 110 inch long wheelbase, it's roughly the same, but Lexus did have to make this car slightly wider to accommodate the increased performance. You can see the wheels are unique to the IS 500. These are the 19-inch NK wheels. These are lighter weight versus the standard wheels on the F Sport. Lexus says the front wheels save about 1 pound, the back wheels save about 2 pounds. You have 14-inch two-piece rotors with twin piston calipers over there. You have staggered wheels, 235s in the front, and then fatter 265s at the rear. Remember, this is a rear-wheel drive car. I like the fact that the mirror here is black painted, although I'm not entirely sure if Lexus offers a sunroof. My tester is missing the sunroof option. I'll have to double check the option package. I didn't see it when I looked at it at a glance, but overall you can see the rest of the proportions, you wouldn't even be able to tell this is a V8 powered IS. When you get to the back, this is where you're gonna be able to tell that it is a special model. Aside from the IS 500 badge, there are no F-Sport badges on the back. Instead, Lexus puts it on the fenders of both sides. And you can see there's a unique exhaust system on this car. It's got that quad outlet stacked exhaust, which are real exhaust tips. The sound is the best part of this vehicle, so I'm gonna fire it up and let you guys hear what it sounds like. Obviously, the V8 is one of the best sounding engines in the segment. Not quite as loud as the LC 500, but still very, very impressive. You can see the taillights. These were refreshed last year with this full length LED. You have LED brake lights, you have LED reverse lights and LED turn signals, which is nice. When you open up the trunk of this vehicle, you can see the trunk capacity hasn't changed. You get around 14 cubic feet of space. The seats still fold down in a 60/40 manner, which is nice. And then underneath here, Lexus does give you a temporary spare tire, which is nice. A lot of its competitors will make you deal with a fix-a-flat kit. So now that we've talked about the exterior, let's take a look at the inside of the IS. You can see here's the key fob for the vehicle. It's Lexus's current and somewhat old-looking key fob. Their smart key access is included with this vehicle, so when you open up the door, this new luxe white leather interior with the black combination definitely is a great color combination with this infrared. I think this interior at a glance looks good, especially with the white leather. You can see the door panel here has some soft touch plastic materials, some carbon fiber look trim. And then my particular tester here is missing the Mark Levinson 17 speaker audio system, which would definitely make the interior feel a little bit more upscale. I wish Lexus would consider doing like metal speaker covers for the IS, but overall the seats look good, but the rest of the dash, once you get inside, definitely is on the dated looking end. When I shut the door has a relatively solid sounding thunk, which gives you an impression of quality. And then when the button to fire up the engine is up here, it's a little higher up on the dash, which is good. And when you fire up this engine, just listen to it. It sounds so good. It just reminds you constantly that this is a V8. And then you can see here, this is the updated infotainment system that I showed you guys. It's a 10.3-inch display. It now includes Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but it is not wireless. It's a wired connection. But you can see here, once you pull it up, this is essentially a great feature to have, and it's now a little bit closer to where you can touch it, or you can still use this horrible trackpad if you guys prefer. But I definitely would just prefer to use the touchscreen of this car. It's going to make it a lot easier to use. The gauge cluster here, you can see this is the LFA inspired gauge cluster, where it'll move to the left or to the right depending on the button you push. If you change the drive mode selector, you can see the tack changes. All white means it's in Sport Plus setting. The engine, oh, that's great. That is fantastic. So we'll talk about that later on the driving scene. The interior, however, isn't super impressive when you look at the tech department. You can see there's the backup camera. The graphics are decent. They've updated this. My tester has the full 360 surround view camera with parking sensors. The touchscreen itself is responsive and it works well. But you can see very large black border around the screen. They could have made this a full 12-inch if they got rid of some of the black border. You can see these touch-sensitive sliders look like they're from 2013 still, along with some of these small buttons. You do have two knobs here, volume and tuning, and I also love the cooled seats and the heated steering wheel that my tester comes with. You can see this controls the 8-speed auto, very traditional shifter. It includes paddles on the wheel. The steering wheel itself is not powered tilt and telescoping. Some Lexus models include that. I'm surprised this one doesn't have it. My tester is also missing a memory package to include memory seats here, which at this price point, it should be included. It'll include the power tilt and telescoping wheel as well. The seats are very comfortable and supportive, even though these aren't real leather seats. You definitely notice that it is relatively soft. Lexus does a really good seat design. You can see when you open this up, the center console is a pretty good size. It's generous. And then up here, you can see no sunroof on my tester. I'm not entirely sure if it's an option. I'll have to double check that. But when you look at the glove compartment here, it's a pretty good size. The lid is damped but not lined with felt. So overall, the interior isn't really anything great. It's perfectly functional and it has decent room in here. It's a little cozy. You definitely notice the hood bulge when you're sitting behind the wheel, but overall, its competitors have much more impressive looking cabins. So we haven't seen a V8 in the Lexus IS in quite some time, and while this isn't necessarily a full-on ISF, it practically is. Lexus bills this as the most powerful IS ever. And with 472 horsepower, Lexus says this car should sprint to 60 in 4.5 seconds. Woo-hoo-hoo! Listen to that noise. Oh my God, that noise. Amazing. You gotta love a V8. Like, there's just something about a V8 that makes this car just so, charismatic. It's very much a nod to enthusiasts. I mean, this is the end of an era. Lexus is giving us a final hurrah to the V8. And even though this isn't a full-on ISF, the engine is good. It's very, very good. The rest of the car, dynamically, this heavily refreshed IS, is still one of the better driving sports sedans in this segment. I mean, yes, there are much better ones out there that offer all-wheel drive, that offer turbocharged engines. This car still has something to like about it, although the interior is still very, very old. I mean, yes, we got a new infotainment system here. We have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay now. We have a touchscreen finally. But there's something about this car's interior that feels like it's from 10 years ago still, even though Lexus has done their job to update it. Dynamically, though, the steering of the IS500 is very quick, very responsive. I like how smooth the vehicle feels. The suspension also feels good. You have that Torsen limited slip differential, and we have these fatter 265 width tires in the back, so we should essentially have good traction. And like the other IS models, the visibility in here is good. It's easy to see in and out of this car quite well, and it still puts a smile on my face. I do quite enjoy driving this car, especially when you listen to that engine. Now, this 8-speed automatic is just a Lexus design transmission. And it's certainly no dual clutch, but I think Lexus has done a decent job here at making this transmission as sporty as it can. I mean, yes, the 8 speeds that you'll find in the BMW and the Audi, I think, are slightly quicker shifting. But I don't hate this transmission. I don't hate it. I don't think that enthusiasts are going to mind it either, although sure, Lexus could have put a manual transmission in this car, but let's be honest here. Manual is a dying breed. So we've got these quick shifting and smooth shifting 8 speeds, which do work well in just everyday situations. Now, Lexus says 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. Let's go ahead and test that out. That was a false start. Don't do that again. Traction control just makes this thing just want to step its back end out, which, try that one more time. We'll just floor it from a stop here. And there we go. I got 4.56 seconds already, which is quicker than a TLX Type S. This is a very nice performance. I mean, yes, if you're going to compare this car to like a BMW M3, the IS500 is slower, but it sounds good. This sounds better than the straight 6 because it's a V8, and the performance is impressive. I am genuinely surprised at how much I like the performance of this car. Could Lexus have made this faster by making it all-wheel drive? Sure, they could have. But the whole point of this car is being able to dynamically spin the back end or drift the back end out, and I imagine this car has been tuned very well to do that. The steering in this vehicle is just so quick and responsive. I love the feel of the chassis. This feels better than the last RCF that I drove because it doesn't feel so fat and heavy, and that was my issue with the old RCF. Was how it was kind of like that Frankenstein car of 3 different platforms melded on together, and you felt that weight. This car doesn't have that. So if you're considering an RCF, consider this because it is the cheaper option as well, about $8,000, $9,000 cheaper, and it makes this car super appealing. The paddles also work decently well. They do rev match and blip upshifts. The one thing this car just lacks is launch control. There is no launch control like you get on the RCF. Let's try another 0 to 60 just one more time. I want to see what I can do. Oh, there we go. I got 4.37 seconds there. Wow, 4.3 seconds. Lexus did say 4.4. They said 4.4 to 4.5. Ooh, this is definitely the quickest accelerating IS ever. ever. And I'm in love with it. It is so good, so controlled. What an amazing experience that Lexus is giving us here. It is very much a nod to enthusiasts. And even when you're just driving the car normally, I have the car and it's Sport Plus. Let me switch it over to just normal setting here. And the adaptive suspension gets a little bit softer. The steering gets a little lighter. The exhaust also quiets down, although there is an active sound control button here, just like in other Lexus products, where the car is amplifying the noise. Like when I put my foot down here, it is very much amplifying the noise, because if I turn this sound thingy off, it is definitely a little bit quieter when it's off, but you still hear the V8. I just don't know why Lexus needs to do a fake engine noise in something like this. It's not necessary, because of that V8 is so good already. You don't need to do a fake engine noise in this car. This has plenty of power. I was not expecting, I knew I was gonna like the IS500 F Sport, but I didn't think I would like it this much. Just listening to that V8 scream is just a joy. I absolutely love this powertrain, and it makes me sad because it is an end of an era. We are going to electrification, and this V8 is amazing. And it's a 5-liter naturally aspirated V8 that just likes to rev, and all I want to do is listen to this thing scream. Woo-hoo-hoo! Above 7,000 or above 5,000 RPM, you can hear it just starts breathing heavily, and it just makes that lovely induction howl. It sounds like there's already a cold air intake on this car. Oh, you gotta love Lexus for doing this. So yes, this isn't quite as fast as a BMW M3 or a C63, but if you're gonna compare it to a TLX Type S, an Audi S4, a Mercedes AMG C43, and a BMW M340i, the V8 is a reason to get this car. Now yes, you could get the others with all-wheel drive. You can't get that on the Lexus, so if you live in a snowbelt state like I do, you probably don't want this. But if you don't, and you want rear drive shenanigans with the only naturally aspirated V8 in the segment, this is the one you're gonna wanna get. So while I only had the IS500 F Sport performance for a couple of days, I have to say, I came away very impressed with this car. Yes, I was kind of disappointed with the regular IS350 that I drove last year. Let's be honest here, Lexus didn't do anything to the powertrain, which is what that car essentially needed. But now, stuffing the 5-liter V8 into this car, yes, keeping it rear-wheel drive, have they managed to make this vehicle an ISF? Technically, no. It doesn't have some of the performance bits that you get in an RCF, and Lexus could have gone a little bit further to give us a vehicle that was truly an ISF competitor. However, this is pretty darn close. I got 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds, which is just insane considering how much quicker this is than some of its competitors. The rear drive allows for those really nice tail-out shenanigans, and it gives you the ability to do some burnouts, especially if you turn off the traction control. And while the 8-speed automatic isn't the quickest shifting automatic out there, it's very smooth in everyday traffic and everyday driving. The steering is sharp, the suspension is great, it gives you great ride quality. The tech on this interior is livable because it has the touchscreen now with the Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but still the inside of this car does feel a little bit old. Really, it is a great option as long as you guys don't want all-wheel drive. Its competitors all offer all-wheel drive. If you live in an area that doesn't require it, this is going to be easily my pick just because of its charismatic V8 engine. And really, the price is the big question with this car, because how much does this car cost? An RCF with this same engine, but a little bit better performance from its upgraded suspension and exhaust system, starts at around $66,000. This car is roughly $9 grand less. It starts at $56,500, which is around $13,000 more expensive than an IS350. For the additional power and the 2 extra cylinders, I think it's worth the upcharge, and at $56,500, it's a great deal. This makes it about the same price as a Mercedes AMG C43, around $3,000 to $4,000 more expensive than the Audi, than the Acura TLX Type S, and the BMW M340i. So I think with the V8, Lexus does have a viable alternative here, and it's probably worth the money. The problem is my tester here being the premium model that includes the upgraded Mark Levinson, the GPS, the upgraded interior slightly with the different tech features that you get. Stickers for around $62,000 with the premium paint charge. 62 grand is a little bit expensive. The launch edition model that I showed you guys a couple months ago, that one's around $67,000. Now, of course, that one's about exclusivity. Lexus will only offer about 500 of those. But at $67,000, I think this car is too expensive. At $62,000, this one here missing a sunroof and memory seats. If it had those features, I'd say it's worth the price. Really, the base model, though, at $56,500 is a really great deal. And for those of you who want a V8 in your sports sedan, a naturally aspirated V8 and a compact sports sedan, this is the only option left, so pick these up while you can. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2022 Lexus IS 500 F Sport Performance. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.